This is an out in the open that has been on my mind actually really for some time, almost you could argue since I started the channel. So earlier this year, in around springtime in March, I was faced with a situation where I was unemployed. It took a lot longer than I thought to navigate that, and it was just a really a lot of I have a lot of feelings on the matter. And as I started to think about it more and more and more, I'm like, I shouldn't really keep this stuff to myself, and this would definitely fit really to the core, I think, of what I started this channel being about. Being open about this subject is definitely very important. And so I'm going to see where this video takes me, because I have some talking points, I got some notes that I'm going to be going off of, but for the most part, this is just going to be what's coming off the top as I just navigate trying to talk about this. I do have one piece of content that I did take the time to write out, just because I really wanted to make sure that I did not mince my words with some of the context around this. And context really is important, especially with this subject, because I don't really see a lot of people actually talk very openly about this subject. And be vulnerable and honest about it to the degree that I'm planning on in this video. So let me just pull up that disclaimer here, so I'm covering my own ass, and we'll go from there. So I'm just reading off this, so if you see my eyes darting around, that's because I'm reading off of a prompt, but it is one that I wrote, so here we go. Before I get into this, a bit of context. This video is about my personal experience with being unemployed for a period of about 3 months. Everything that I'm sharing is based on my own perspective, thoughts, and feelings. I won't be naming any companies or individuals, and nothing here is meant to cast any sort of negative or unprofessional light on anyone that has been involved in this. There were a lot of factors, some visible, some not, that led to this situation happening. And I'll touch on the parts that matter for the sake of the story, but this is not about blame or bitterness in any sort of way. I'm not angry about what happened. I know I'm reading that off the prompt, but like truly, I'm not angry about it. I'm just trying to be honest about what it was like to live through this experience in hopes that it helps somebody, or at the very least gives you something to think about if, God forbid, you should face something like this. This is going to be a longer video, so I have added timestamps in the description of it. So if you only care about certain parts, like the job search part, financial stress, mental health side of things, feel free to jump around in this video to what is going to be most relevant for you. With all that out of the way, this is my experience with unemployment. So first things first, some background. So in the spring of this year, 2026, that's when this all happened. Though there had been stuff, of course, that leads up to this. It doesn't just really happen overnight. In the previous year, I'd been with a different company, good job, nothing wrong with it. I did well with it. I had and have good working relationships there. And I'm very grateful for everything that job afforded me, and so on and so forth. But it was not a job that I recognized after a time that it was not a job that was going to fulfill me in the long term. In the long term, as far as like professional growth and personal growth and things like that, I just recognized that it would be a place to be, like, if I just wanted to do that same thing and just be that and do nothing really but that from some time, like that's fine. But I'm always trying to evolve in some way, and so I don't know, I just did not see it working out in the long term as being something that I would just devote the rest of my life to, essentially. So anyways, that led to conversations with my wife and some soul searching, and then, sometime into like the late latter half of 2025, I started to just casually look for different opportunities. I wasn't really thinking anything super serious, didn't really actually even have a clear direction in mind or a place, but I was like, let's just poke around, go on LinkedIn, go on Indeed, different job boards and just see what happens, right? Really didn't take too long, but I found this job with the organization that this happened with, and at a glance, I was like, yeah, like this seems like up my alley. I like what it's about. I like the description that's there. This seems good. The organization is one that I have a lot of respect for and still continue to, even despite everything that went down. I was like, all right, let's just give it a whirl and try. Frankly, I didn't go like crazy on the application and then submit like a ton of materials and things like that. I applied for it and I just didn't think much of it, and then I just kind of moved past it. It wasn't that long before I heard back, and you interview, and long story short, I was hired. So yay, great. I was thrilled about it initially. I was like, hey, like this organization's fantastic. There's tons of opportunities here. Benefits are fantastic. Super duper. Awesome. I gave my notice to the previous employer, went out on good terms. Fantastic. And then I went ahead and started at this new place. At first, like, I don't think, like, I definitely didn't, like, walk into it and being like, oh no, this is bad, like, right away. I didn't do that. First couple of weeks, honestly, were fine. There was a relatively set, if not loose, onboarding structure that was there, but it was fine. I was happy that there was some organization and thought behind it, and so there was a plan, and I just tried to follow that plan as best I could. But in truth, I was only at this position and company for about, I think it was like 6 weeks, which is like nothing. I had never been at a job for such a short amount of time and have things go south as quickly as they did in this gig. So after those first couple of weeks, the red flags started to fly. I mean, like they just started to come up like practically daily, and there was a lot of stuff that was just indicating that this is not going well. I'm not going to pretend like it was something of like, oh, it's all them and like I'm the victim and things like that. That's not true. The simplest way of putting it is that I wasn't a good fit for the role, but I also certainly think that there was some stuff on their side of the street that could and should be different. Just leave it at that. It was not a good fit. It's not a good fit for all parties involved, and that recognition came up came up very quickly. So how I found out is I got I think it was an email, and it's one of those emails that every employee of a place just loves to see, of like, hey, are you busy? You got plans on like 8 a.m. on a Friday? Like, no. You gonna tell me what it's about? No, we're not. Wonderful. So of course your brain just goes to speculation hell, and then you're just thinking of all the worst possibilities that could happen. And honestly, like my instincts and thoughts were right, because what ended up happening is I was led to a room with a HR representative I had never met before, and my supervisor's with me, and basically they just laid it out in professional words of just, this isn't working out. We think you think it's probably not working out, and so your options are, we're going to go through a process to basically investigate this further as to why it's not working out, which is like 90% likely to lead to us just firing you straight up. Or there is the other option, which is you voluntarily quit, save yourself some dignity and blah, 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 and just kind of leave of your own accord, and then it's a little more amicable and, less tension, and, certainly better for them, and I'll explain why that is at some point in this. So that was essentially the options that were laid out. It's an emotional situation to be in. I can laugh at it now or just like look back with a little bit more clarity, but certainly when you're in it, it's tough. I had asked to have the room to myself because I just needed I just felt like I needed a minute, because just emotionally, like my mind was racing through a lot of stuff, and I was distraught, certainly. And I asked to also be able to discuss it with my wife over the phone, because my wife is my best friend. She's my everything. So, I needed to talk to her about it to see what I should do. And that was not an easy conversation, I can tell you that. My first instincts were get out and get out now. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I've already been miserable leading up to this. This is not great. Just run, basically, to just have this situation end as fast as possible. But there's a lot of things that led to me not doing that, and it makes sense from a logical standpoint. And so I decided to take a higher road and swallow my pride, swallow, the feelings of uncomfortability that I was having, and just, tough it out, basically, and quit as I was putting, I mean, I don't want to get into like a he said she said thing or something like that. And again, like, I'm not bitter about this, but it was definitely a position of like, you're gonna quit or be canned. And so I chose to quit because it bought myself some more time to be able to figure out my next move, not just in terms of like job, but just like what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do with my life at this point? So bought some time for that, which was important, and then that also allowed me to, as I said before, just kind of walk out with some dignity and feel like I wasn't like a complete failure in the situation. I can tell you that those couple weeks leading up to actually being done, those are some of the hardest weeks I've ever had in my life. I can say that with absolute certainty and clarity and confidence. Awful. I mean, just awful. It's awful because the situation, one, is just incredibly uncomfortable to be in, and then when you're in a position where you have to sit in it, basically, and stay, and you can't go anywhere, and like they don't want you around, you don't want to be there. I mean, it's about as socially bad as it gets. I mean, it's just, I literally probably don't have enough words to describe just how much it was just awful on my psyche. But anyways, I did whatever duties I was able to do, still perform and do in the role to finish it out on as best a note as I could. And then in whatever time I had, beyond that, I just used it to look for jobs, essentially. And I had no clear idea of like what exactly I was looking for, but I'm like, you have a clock and it's ticking, and you need to make as much of this time as possible. So just, you need to do this. You need to be focused and find your next move, and quickly. That's what happened. And then, you eventually reach the last day, and it's just, it was awkward. I felt awkward. I was just like, yep, like, okay, great, bye. You need anything else? Okay, you don't. Okay, I'm like, okay, thanks. And I can't say thanks for everything, but yeah, just like, okay, this is, all right, let's just be done. And I'm like, yep, okay, sounds good. And then, yeah, I still remember that day when it was done, and I walked out the door as a newly unemployed person for the first time in many, many years. I can't stress that enough, actually, like how I've only had a period of significant unemployment once before in my life, and full transparency, it's because I was fired. I can assure you, and I promise I'm not just being like biased or, trying to save myself some face or something like that. In the time that I had been let go of this position, like many, many years ago, it was a very different set of circumstances, very different. I promise I was not doing anything unethical or unprofessional. Similar case of just, it wasn't a good fit, but just a very, very different set of circumstances, and I was very different then. But nothing that would reflect, I think, ill on me in a professional matter. I don't have a track record of this, thankfully. That first day, like when I came out, it was just a very strange feeling of like, relief. Like you're just glad that like it's just done for however it turned out, it's done. The ugliness, the discomfort, awkwardness, uncomfortability, all of this can be behind you. I remember walking to my car. I didn't cry. I know I didn't cry, but I was definitely emotional. I was just like, I had a feeling of numbness. That's for sure. I definitely just had a feeling of like blah and numbness of like, well, I'm now just kind of like tossed back out into the world, and we'll see what happens. I do remember that first night, I'm not gonna lie. Went to the store and basically got like almost like the equivalent of like when someone breaks up with you, of like your comfort food. I think I got like some frozen pizza I liked and some garbage crap, and then I honestly think I had like a tall boy like beer of some kind, just to be like, just screw it. Like, this is like my one treat to myself, which I'm not even like, this isn't like yay, like a reward for me. It's just like, this is just to help me get through this. Like, this sucks. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people would willingly admit to that on camera, but yeah, I'm doing it. The last day, I'm trying to think. I think the last day was on a Friday, so I did just give myself the weekend at that point to just kind of not jump straight into I gotta have a new plan and figure this out, but just to kind of like be and just relax and just do that. And then that's really when the first early days of the experience began, which for the sake of this video, I'm structuring things out because this all took place over like a course of like 3 months. So the early days is like the first like 30 days of unemployment for this. So early days, those first 30 days, what happened? Well, the first thing I had attempted to do, and I just, like I said, I hadn't been in the situation for such a long time, I wasn't even sure if it would work, was just trying to file for unemployment. So I'm like, all right, I guess I have to do that. I won't get into the nitty gritty of that just because, one, it's incredibly boring. It's anything, it's not, surprise, surprise, but most anything that's related to government type of programs and structures and things like that can be just ratherly over cumbersome and complicated and dull and whatnot. So I won't get all into that. To keep it short, I tried to do that. It was a process, but ultimately the state deemed that I was not eligible for unemployment under the circumstances, which it really doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's also probably also why they also give you that option in a situation like I was in to quit. Because then, if it officially shows on the record that, you quit, even though, you're put into a position where they're essentially, kind of forcing your hand into it, the state doesn't care about anything like that. I tried to give them, they they do an interview, a screening with you, they get your side of it. I'm sure they talked to somebody there, but they just ultimately deemed that I was not able to receive unemployment from this situation. I wasn't really counting on a bunch with that. I mean, the one time I had actually had to be on unemployment was this situation from years and years ago. And I mean, you definitely don't receive a fortune from that, and nor should you, because it's meant to just kind of, be enough basically to get you on your feet and, get to whatever the next thing in your life is supposed to be. But that said, it wasn't exactly the greatest of news to be like, all right, well, I can't even count on that. So now it's basically just a matter of, we have to look at our numbers, my wife and I, and see what we're doing. She's been working and still works, this entire time. And thank God for that, because, the situation would have been a hell of a lot scarier had we not had my wife's job and her stability through that time. I mean, no lie. I can only imagine how much more disastrous the experience would have been had we not had my wife and the support from her and just everything that came from that. Financially, I mean, unemployment's just stressful, certainly on that. At the time of recording this video, and still, she's still pregnant, but my wife, she was in her, early stages of pregnancy, or around that time, I think. I really want to say that she was pregnant around the time that this happened, and I mean, certainly that is a cloud that just hangs over you of hey, you just had this negative situation happen with you professionally. You don't really know what the hell the future has in store, and there's no guarantees in life, and you have a kid coming and it's your first, and security, what security? So I mean, I have all this laid out in the video, believe me, of things to touch on, but I'll touch on that. And having that cloud over me daily was certainly a drag. I guess I'm touching on the subject briefly, so I guess I'll talk about it. The mentality that I had in the early days of this was not to at all shift into a space of I have no job. I actually instinctively knew that was a really important thing of just, you might not be in a day job where you're driving to work and doing your thing, but that does not mean that you can't work. right? Like it was very important to me that I did not shift my mental space and focus to just be like, well, you have no job and now you're nothing, and just, sit on your ass all day and just hope for the best. Like I'm too much of a realist for that to happen. It's just that's just not how it goes. I mean, like on weekends when I was going through this, like sure, I'd kind of like live my life more normally, but like during the week, during like regular working hours, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, that sort of thing, I stayed in work mode. I mean, like I make to-do lists. I'm a professional. I just saw it as like, hey, your routine's just different right now, but you need the work nonetheless to get out of this and get out of this quick so that you can provide for your family. And that was certainly just different. Not only coming up with that routine, but just being able to maintain enthusiasm for it and maintain the energy and the discipline to be able to continue to do it when you don't have really anyone around you that's like holding your hand through this and helping you. That isn't to say I had nobody to lean on during this period, and I'll talk about that. I did, and I'm grateful for that. A lot of it, and like this is what I don't hear people talk about when you're in a situation like this. So much of this rides and rests on you. I mean, honestly, like you're the one that has to find the jobs. You're the one that has to apply for the jobs. You're the one that hopefully has to find one that actually speaks to you and is going to further your career. Because that's something that I also don't hear people talk about when they're looking for jobs. It's like there's this notion of, almost like when people talk about career, it's like, well, when you get to this stage, you do this, you do this, you do this. Like they just act like there's this straightforward linear path for this. And to some careers, that's certainly true. It's not true. But look, for myself in the situation that I was in, did I want to take the first thing that necessarily came my way? No, not really, unless it ended up being great. But I had been in the space of communications, and I continued to be in the space of communications, and I wanted to stay in that space and still further myself, but not take a bunch of steps back. In a situation like this, it's possible to take steps back because you're not exactly always in a position to be choosy. Unless like you have like some super high intellect and mega connections and you're being offered like 20 gigs and you can like pick and choose between them. But in my experience, no. I had to hunt and gather for whatever I could and try to do as much as I could to make somebody see that basically I am the right choice for this. And that comes from job interviewing and stuff like that, which I'll also talk about in this video. For the time being, the routine was, during the week, you're gonna, apply for X amount of jobs a week. And that's outside of, unemployment. Because like I said, I didn't get unemployment during any of this. So you don't have to apply for a minimum amount of jobs, but I needed to for my own sake. So I set aside like a number of jobs that I would actively try to apply for, research a lot of jobs because like I said, I wasn't trying to just like get a job. If I wanted to get a job, I could probably just go to like a Walmart or something like that and be like, hey, hire me, like, and something would happen. But, I'm in the position where I have I have a mortgage, I got a kid on the way, I got other stuff, other commitments, other things to be responsible for. I'm not in my 20s anymore. So no, I have to do something that's going to work fiscally. Coming up with the amount of jobs, taking care of the house, honestly, was part of the routine. I'm in general a pretty clean person. My wife likes that. But I certainly wanted to use the time to the advantage of us of like, well, hey, since I'm now home, practically all the time, let me at least make sure I'm taking care of the house and taking work off of your back, speaking of my wife, and that would be good. Working out was important to me too, like both my wife and I work out, and so just having the discipline to still do that, which thankfully at the time I was training for a full marathon, and that was a good and bad thing to have during that time because it gave me still a consistency of a goal to continue to shoot for, even though I didn't have like an identity with, I had no identity really, like that's something else I'll touch on. But yeah, when you lose a job like that, like your identity kind of gets stripped away if you really tie yourself a lot to your role. But then like just like your motivation just completely gets turned upside down. And so that's why I say it was also kind of a bad thing because I don't think I trained very effectively for that marathon. I finished it, like it was good, but I definitely I think would have done a hell of a lot better had I not been in the situation I was in and under the stress I was in as well, because that made training for that awful. So yeah, if you're unemployed, probably don't try to train for a rigorous marathon if you expect to do well in it. And then really I think the last thing I did in those early days was just really try to lean on my network as best I could. And when I say network, there's a couple of things I mean from that. There's, in my world, there's a professional network that you have of, certainly like LinkedIn connections and things like that. But, for me, it's more like immediate, close relationships I've kept of people I've worked with over the years that I would hopefully think would, vouch for me in form of references or, maybe try to find me an opportunity and that sort of thing. And so professionally, there's that. There's certainly in my family, like my mom, my wife, my brothers, a few close friends that I was able to, get real on this subject with. So that certainly helped. And then religiously as well, which I can't pretend I'm always the most religious person in the world, but I did and am part of a faith community in my circle of faith. It's called CEW. It's a it stands for Christian Experience Weekend, but it's really more than like just one weekend. Like you really stay tight and connected with these people, and so I leaned on them. There was a lot of good that came out of that, but I also will tell you, and it will come in the next chunk of this video because I'm recording it in chunks. There's some good with that, but there's also some harsh truths that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, and certainly some of it may just be subjective to my individual experience, but I have a feeling not. Like I have a feeling that there are some truths that I'm going to share with this that you will hear and be like, yeah, that like nobody really wants to hear that, but yeah, like it's true. So just don't sugarcoat it. So I'll talk about that when we get there in the video. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I did for those early days. Just apply for work, clean the house, try to stay as fit as I could physically, and just mentally, give myself breaks when I needed to. But like don't indulge in like a temptation of like, well, like now I'm gonna like take a nap every day at like 3:00 or something like that. Like if I did that, that's just going to completely derail any productivity that I have or again, just throw my whole rhythm off. So, no, I didn't do that. That's actually probably like one of the few proud things or things I learned about myself through that this whole experience was, I took it seriously the entire time, and, for better or worse, I did not get complacent. I did not get lazy. I did not get, I certainly had some lows, mentally, and I will definitely talk about that, but I never gave up. If I had to be in a situation where it's like, I'm not hearing from anybody and nobody wants me, and, forget any career direction you think you're going in, just get a job, I would have done it. Believe me, I would have done it. I got a baby on the way. You think I'm not going to take care of my kid? No. I'm going to do anything I have to do. Shit, I'll be a mascot in the street, like flipping around a dollar sign or whatever. If that means that, it's like that or starve. Like my dignity and my, look. I thankfully do not define career and job title. Like I am not somebody that is their entire identity is wrapped into that. I think if it was, it would probably even be worse than what I'm talking about. Yeah, I certainly was not going to let that happen. But you'll have to find out what happened by continuing along in the video and seeing for yourself. Now we'll talk about what I just label as the middays of this experience, which is just the next month into it. Certainly the middle point, it wasn't as bad as just where my mental space was in the end days of the situation, where I was getting towards the end of it and figuring out the light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, the middays I started to definitely come across some just harsh realities and truths. Not that I wasn't oblivious to these, but when you're in a situation like this, reality does not hold back. Not to be negative, I sound like Rocky. Life's gonna beat you down. It ain't about what you do when you get hit. It's about what you do when you get up. But that's Rocky Balboa. Great movie. Just watch it. I think one of the first harsh realities that I learned from this period was that your network, certainly your professional network, does, like, even if you have a good one, and I thought that I had like a great one, or maybe, not even a great one, but just like a solid one. I'm like, I got some, I thought I had some solid people in my corner, and that isn't to say that like somebody, went out of their way to ignore me or burn me or anything like that. It's not true. And I still have a good connection of people in the professional world, but I certainly think in the early days, I thought, if I kind of just explain my situation matter-of-factly to people I've worked closely with, that, it means that they're going to, find some job for you out of the woodwork and really go to bat for you and, like, do something to, like, help you. And, look, that isn't to say that could never happen. I mean, very well could. People have some great relationships with one another in the professional world, but in my situation, I can tell you this, that outside, and again, I really want to be clear on this. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm not even trying to bash or badmouth people that I reached out to. That is not what I'm trying to say here. But look, you have to be real. When I reached out to these people, almost all of them were super supportive and understanding and non-judgmental of the situation that I was in. There were some that I actually had the opportunity to almost do what I'm doing now, which is just long form explaining, really in detail and in private, what was going on. People were very supportive in my professional network. Some of them even were great and would send me job leads and do occasional check-ins and things like that. And for that, I'm eternally grateful for that. I can only hope that if they were ever in a situation that they could lean on me the way I leaned on them. That is the honest to God's truth. But when I say there's a harsh reality with this, I mean, here, look, truth be told, where I ended up, it wasn't a result of any of the people in my professional network. It really wasn't. I mean, sure, like, they helped keep my spirits up. There were certainly some opportunities that were sent to me that I pursued, and some of them, had some possibility to it and some traction, and then others just didn't. But no one person in my network was just able to find a job for me and just give me a job. And let alone like the job I was looking for. Like, they really couldn't do that. Like, the most, like, somebody in your professional network, I mean, sure, they can serve as a reference, which some of these people did. And again, very grateful, eternally grateful. Hopefully I could be do the same for them. Here's what they're gonna do. They can serve as a reference for you. They can give you some good moral support, like, hey, attaboy, like, don't give up. They can do that. I don't know, maybe have like coffee with them. Like, some could be like super proactive and like introduce you to someone or have you come to something, like, maybe. But miracles are very unlikely to happen from that, at least in my experience. And that was a tough pill for me to swallow, of just like, well, I'm glad that I'm able to lean on these people just like for my own sake and just trying to be professional about the whole thing, but it didn't change the outcome. Like, it didn't change what happened. I'm certain that I was better off because I've thankfully built a network over my life that, I try to do what I can to invest in it and not just like lean on it in a time of need. That's almost like something I think about like with prayer, where it's like people only pray like when like they're in like times of distress, where it's like, you should, and this isn't even me being preachy. I'm not even like a super religious person, but like, you shouldn't just pray when the chips are down. The same goes with friends and family and connections. Like, don't just come to them when you need something, but like, you should also just like develop and try to nurture your relationships as best you can. But that's another subject. The reality was of that is that this, it didn't matter. It didn't really count for much. I thought, if I reached out to the right person, they reach out to somebody, something's going to happen, but no, it just didn't really happen. I can tell you from like a family support side of things, I mean, thank God for my wife. I mean, that's probably going to be something that echoes through a lot of this video, is just thank God for my wife, because she at no point judged me. I was very transparent and blunt, more so than I would ever be in a video even like this, because it's like, you're always going to be the most ideally, you're your most honest and truthful self to your spouse, to your partner. And yeah, that certainly was the case with my wife. Like, she didn't judge me. She was supportive. I did my best to keep my head up and not feel like a complete failure, even though I certainly had days where I absolutely felt like, just, pardon my language, but fucking useless. Yeah, no, she was a godsend. I mean, she is a godsend. That's my wife. Like, it's a whole other video I can make is about my wife. But yeah, she was good. My mom, also very good and supportive. I was very afraid actually to tell her about the situation because she can be a worrisome person at times, but she actually handled it a lot better than I thought. She really listened to everything that happened, so grateful for that. My brothers, they stood by me. You know, I had a couple of close friends that, it's interesting in the period like this, and it doesn't just take unemployment for somebody to reflect and think about this, but you definitely find out more truths about who really has some stake in your life. Like when the chips are down and like something like this happens. I don't want to say I was like surprised, but I definitely had some, maybe surprises for my own self of just like, there were some people that really came through for me on a friend level. I said I'm not going to name names in this video, and I'm not going to, but one of my best friends he's my oldest friend actually in the world. He hung out with me a couple of times. He would check in on me. He would send me jobs, did sanity checks on me basically. And I had another friend, not even as old, not near as old as this person, but they were also good. Came to see me. We spent some time together hanging out. Watched a movie together, which was great. You know, it's like little stuff like that, but like there was a few core key people that did that for me during this time. And believe me, I'm grateful, because that's another thing that people don't talk about a lot when you're going through something like this is, it's really hard to just be your normal self, whatever normal is. Like, and I mean that in a sense of like if your day, if every day that you have in front of you is just filled with, I have to try and struggle to find like the right job, and I have to interview, and I have to like do all this preparation and take care of the house and do all this stuff, you're probably not going to be going out of your way to be like, hey, you want to get together for a beer? You want to like go hang out? Want to go hike? You want to go do something? Like your proactive outreach efforts just go. And I'm not always great about reaching out to people. Sorry. Like I could be better about it. Not perfect. Thank goodness I had some of these people in my corner that I did. Like seriously, these people know who they are, and I will forever be, I don't even want to say in their debt, just they need anything. It's like that, like ride or die type of thing. They call me, I show. I don't care. You call me anytime, any place, any day, I'm there. I believe in that sort of thing. I believe in loyalty. Thank God for those people. You know, this church group I mentioned, the CEW, that's only something I'd been a part of for the last couple of years. And let me tell you, you can do like prayer requests, like it's like an email chain of like, you know, you can put out something and people can send good wishes of like, hey, like my sister's got cancer, or like blah, blah, blah. So people can use the support group, the system for that sort of thing. And so I was like, all right, well, this is my first time that I'm like praying into the group. I didn't go near as in depth, but I explained, you know, in appropriate words what happened and the outpouring I got from this group. It's hard not to be emotional about it. It's hard not to reflect on it. But like like I had people that hardly or did not know me at all reach out, and not just like, I could tell like they weren't just like, you know, prompting ChatGPT with like, hey, give me a thoughtful prayer and shit it in there. Like they were giving me some thoughtful notes. I had some people like handwrite and send me stuff. And this isn't even like a huge, like I'm sure there's other CEW groups that are in the country and the world. This is a smaller one, at least from what I can tell. And the outpouring I had was just, you know, again, I'm not saying like it changed the circumstance. They didn't, like, none of these people found me a job. I had a few that were kind and like tried to talk to me and like, you know, again, you know, try to look in their own networks for something that fits me, or, you know, try to talk to me and make sure I'm doing okay. Like I had some people that were great about that, but, you know, didn't lead to where I ended up, but it certainly helped my mental space, and my spiritual sense as well. Again, I didn't think that faith and spirituality was going to come up as much in this video, but you question a lot of things when you go through a time period like this. These people with the CEW just really help to reinforce and protect my faith, I think. You know, you go through a hell of a lot of self-doubt and mental toll on yourself. A mental toll is definitely taken on yourself unless like you just are like the most resilient person on planet Earth and you never have this happen. Speaking of mental toll and self-doubt and all that, so look, I can tell you myself as a person, I can be cynical, I can be pessimistic, I can be judgmental, I can be harsh, and a lot of that is directed towards me inside. A whole different video to get into why that is, but some of it is good, some of it's bad. I don't consider it all a negative. Part of it just forms my personality and just kind of makes me, but it is who I am. It is what it is. I definitely had periods around the mid days of this, certainly in the end days too. End days were probably arguably worse. Where like, you know, some days I'm just like, I don't feel like applying for a job, or I'm not saying anything. Like, there's nothing. It's not to say again that there's no jobs, but it's like there's just nothing that's right for me. Like nothing, this isn't working. My market doesn't have the right stuff. There's not the right opportunities. I don't see an angle to get in on this. Like there's nothing. So that can certainly leave you with a feeling of numbness and just bitter defeat and depression and loathing and it's probably more words I could say that it's a little more colorful language, but I won't do it in this video. Some days, you know, I just kind of gave up some days. Like I just, you know, kind of just napped in the afternoon or ate bad food. You know, sometimes I would just like give myself like a healthy break, like, you know, watch a movie. You would actually think with how much I love movies that maybe I just watched a shitload of movies. And actually, no, it's not true. I really didn't watch that much because, like I said, I took the situation seriously. And, but yeah, I mean, like my working out, my physical health suffering, I'm sure I probably gained a little bit of weight during the time. But I think really the biggest hit that I was taking was just in myself. I mean, I have a lot of strong opinions on the word career and, you know, person's professional self, but I had days where I felt lost. Like, I had days where I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I've, like, interviewed for, like, X amount of roles. I've been turned down a bunch, which that's something I'll also make sure I touch on in here, is talking about the number of interviews I did and the number of rejections I received and what that does to you, because that's certainly a big part of unemployment that people aren't really candid enough about, in my opinion. Days where I just wanted to cry. Some days I did. I don't know. I kind of just didn't know who I was for a while. Like, I don't know, like where am I going? Like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, there's definitely there's a lot of really complicated feelings that are hard to articulate, and I'm not trying to withhold anything, but it's just like it's tough to put this into words. And if it was a little more buttoned up and prepped, then it wouldn't be out in the open, and that's the point of this. One of the points. It felt like crap some days. I didn't want to hang out with people for a while. I didn't want to see anybody. I thankfully, like, I don't do, like, when I go through something like this, like, I don't do the thing of, like, I'm not eating. Like, I actually, food, I almost probably have the opposite problem of, like, I almost eat worse in something like this to, like, eat, you know, comfort food, that sort of thing, just to make myself feel better. You try to just do what you need to do to just keep your head above board, keep it above water. And I didn't do anything I regret, nothing like that, but just certainly I probably could have been more kind to myself and a bit more resilient, but I also think I became more resilient by going through this. That is something that is as old as time, as, you know, pain and suffering and struggle and strife will, for some people, you know, help them mature and even grow more and things like that. So I don't know. I have a good enough head on my shoulders that despite all the negative crap mentally that I put myself through and dealt with, I was able to I was able to just keep going one day at a time. And, that's the last thing I'll end on this middays thing is talking about the interviews. Okay. I actually promised myself that I was going to like tabulate and put together a total of the number of interviews. So I have like a hard figure to work with to be real about this, but I actually think I can just articulate it very truthfully to me what happened. Now, look, I don't have the exact total in front of me, but I can tell you, like, for good, solid, real, reputable jobs that I had interviewed for, I think there was probably, like, I don't know, maybe like 20 of them. Of, like, the real, like, solid, like, lead stuff, right? Like, solid, like, these are promising ones. I think there was, like, 20. Maybe it was less. I don't know. And then, there's handful of other interviews in there for just like here's like a phone call here, virtual one there, just to kind of try to feel it out, but those don't go anywhere. So I don't really have an accurate count, but I can just definitely tell you I interviewed more than I have ever interviewed in my life. Some would say, an optimist might say that, hey, great practice. Like, if anything, that's going to make you better at interviewing. Yes and no. I think, there's never harm in interviewing. I mean, I will definitely say there's always benefits to doing it. You meet people, make good impressions. Maybe they don't hire you for this, but they remember you for that. Lots of stuff that can certainly come from just interviewing. Even if it's a job that you're like, I could care less about this, or like I have a lot of doubts, but whatever, I'm gonna do it. And honestly, even still to this day, like, I don't get nervous for interviews. I actually I like to interview. I've interviewed for I've interviewed for a number of different jobs. Don't ask me how many, just over the course of my lifetime, I mean. But something that I experienced going through this is I eventually started to experience what I can only describe as interview burnout. Let me tell you, even if like they're jobs that you like are really excited about, enthusiastic about, you're invested in the process and great, I don't know, you only have so much mental space. You only have so much mental energy. And if you're going on 3 months of unemployment and like you're having to constantly keep putting yourself, your best self on, and answering each job as if it's like that's the one that's like, this is it, like I'm invested in this, like, yep, I'm going to answer your questions to the most best candid ability that I can and show you that I'm invested in it. It's gonna wear thin. I started to get so tired of interviewing. I was like, I don't know what else to say. I'm like, I've tried like this approach and this approach and that approach and this approach, and I'm like, how many different ways can I tell you this is what I'm skilled at, this is what I'm not good at, this is my experience here, this is where I'm trying to grow here? Like, there's only so many answers to so many questions and ways that you can present yourself. And yeah, believe me, like towards the end of the period, I was like, if I have to interview one more time, I'm just gonna be so blunt and candid and bad that they'll either think I'm psychotic or just unhinged or whatever, but they're gonna be like, this is not how a person interviews. And I'd be like, well, this is what happens when you interview like 100 times for something. Like, it can drive you crazy. It's awful. There were some interviews though that went well. I can definitely say I got really close on a couple. Like, there was some jobs where like I had a phone interview, a virtual interview, in-person interview. I think even one more in-person one. There's in my line of work, sometimes you have to do send samples or do like assignments, to like see like if you're kind of right for it. And there was some like really at least a couple really what I'm sure would have been really good jobs. And I hope that whoever got those jobs and the companies that worked with them, because again, I'm not naming anybody, I really hope those people worked out, because like there were a few that I did get really, really excited about. But then that's also a pain that happens with this period, is when you get really close to something and then you get told no. And it's almost worse when you get told like no and it's not for like, you almost like wish that it would be like, well, it's because that you spoke like shit in your interview, or you looked bad, or it's like something that you could point to. But really, most of the time for the ones that I got really close to, it was just like, you know, like you were this close, like this person just had this edge on you of like they had this little bit more experience, or like this you know, personality type, or you know, like there would always be like some very little factor. And you know, you'd be grateful when they actually took the time to tell you, because there are ones that will not tell you why. They won't tell you why. Like, they'll send you some generic email just being like, we thank you so much for your time applying, blah, 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 but you didn't get it. And you're like, okay, great. I have a collection of those emails now. I could probably make a book out of it. I don't regret any of this. Things happen for a reason. I do believe in that to an extent. So things worked out the way that they did. As I was getting towards the, the light at the end of the tunnel, which this was, like not around like 90 days, because like I said, this went on for like 3 months. Eventually I found the job that I have now, and I can tell you, I was looking, like all the jobs that I had been interviewing for and looking for, I was looking for like specific type of work. Like I wasn't just like going for anything and everything, but in my line of work, I know roughly the types of positions that are available to me. And the one I'm in now, I can be honest, it was not one that I would have actively sought first. It was one that was like an option, and I was like, at this point, like you got nothing to lose. I've had nothing to lose this whole time, and I applied for it. In short, without going through all the steps on that, the process for that was actually rather quick, and so far, knock on wood, it's been a great experience so far. I'm actually it's almost like sad that I have to like, double check and be like, am I sure I'm happy, right? But yes, I'm happy in the job I did end up getting. Because yes, that's the good news at the end of this depressing story. I did get hired, and I did get a job, and it's a little too early to say like if it's like great, like if it's like this is it for like a long time, but for now, yeah, like I like it. I'm invested. It's good. It's going well. This ends on a positive note. I got hired. Woo! Of course, I admit by that point I wasn't even really in a mood for celebration. I was just like, yay, like now I can actually get on with my life and start to continue to move forward. But I think at this point in the video, it's good to explain how I see myself now. How do I see myself in this moment now? Because, it's one thing to make it through a stretch of unemployment like that. But as I said throughout this, like your identity is challenged, your self-image, your self-worth gets challenged through a period like this. So it does beg the question, how do you see yourself now? I wish there was a straightforward answer for this, but I don't think there is one, at least for me. One way or another, I see myself as, I'd like to think as a gifted communicator. I'm not trying to sound arrogant or egotistical or anything like that, but I went to school for graphic design, graphic communications. I've spent a large chunk of my life working towards a goal, essentially, of, doing marketing or communicating professionally in some form or fashion through a combination of visual and written and just kind of everything. I've always been able to see myself like as that, regardless of whatever job title I'm stuck with. I don't know, the whole experience I think has taught me to it's kind of taught me to actually simplify my identity a little bit. This is tough to explain. Has anybody ever seen The Life of Chuck? Because that's actually something that comes to mind when I'm thinking about this. And I don't want to spoil the movie or the book, I guess, but I think this is in the trailer, or probably the synopsis for the book. Life of Chuck is a short novella by Stephen King, relatively new one, and there's this notion in there that you contain multitudes, right? Like you are a lot more than just this or that. Like there's a lot in a person, and in some ways, like that's certainly good. There's a lot of truth to that, and I think there's some wisdom there. But I don't know. I think through the whole experience, I got hyper focused and was able to distill myself down to a few key labels that I'll say now. First and foremost, I try to be a good man. I try to be a good husband. Try to be a good son, a good brother, good partner, good working good working relationships. I take a lot of those things a lot more seriously, I think, than anything else. Probably, sometimes to a fault. I don't mean to be like that, but it's just like I've had to work really hard to be able to get to that headspace and be able to do that. So I'm not even sure if that makes sense. I guess just to put it simply, I see myself as somebody that is always pushing for better. I want to be the best version of me that I can be. That will change and evolve over time, but if I'm lucky enough, have the right opportunities, right headspace, people around me, miracles, whatever you want to call it, maybe, just maybe, I'll get to some of the places that I have in my mind of what I would like to be or what I would like to have for a sense of fulfillment. And I'm not going to spell out all those on here. I think everybody has dreams and aspirations and things that they want. I've learned that sometimes certain dreams are not always right. Certain dreams are, and they are worth pursuing. I just try to be open to what the universe has to offer for me. Don't be closed-minded. Accept that change is always inevitable and that things will shift and likely not to the way that you're planning. It doesn't mean that that's bad, but you should not be afraid of it, but embrace it and run towards it. And it certainly means there's going to be failures. You'll continue to stumble if you choose to do this sort of thing, because you can absolutely just choose a lane and stick with it. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, you might actually have a more peaceful and happy life if you do that in certain respects. But for myself, I got one life to live, and there's a lot that I aspire to do, a lot that I aspire to be, and I still hope to be able to do that. So that's, I guess, how I see myself now, is somebody that still has purpose and they are still driven to try to get to these places in my head. I guess, like, to be a little more specific, because I know I'm kind of talking in generalities a little bit, but like, here's an instance. If money and time were no object, like, I love movies. Anybody that knows me knows that deep down movies are one of my absolute core passions. And if I could somehow find a way to be able to do what people like, I'm just gonna like name drop some people that I follow, and not all of them do exactly what I'm trying to do, but like, if I could have a piece of what they do and be able to make a livelihood out of it in a profession, I mean, like, that would be kind of the dream. So like, there's people like what is it, like In Depth with Graham Bessinger, is that his name? I'll put some of these names in the description down below. Like Bill Simmons with the Rewatchables. I love that podcast. Love the Ringerverse, all that stuff. There's YouTube reviewers like Chris Stuckman, Jeremy Johns, John Flickinger, Christian Harloff, Mark Ellis, like John Campia. Like there's a lot of people, Jake Hamilton, Kevin McCarthy, people that operate in that sort of space and do that sort of thing. Like, that's kind of my dream, is to be able to do that. And I mean, you could say that there's clear definitions of that, like part of it's journalism, part of it's content creation, marketing, and entertainment correspondence, whatever. But like, these are dreams and aspirations that I have, and I've always been kind of odd about like keeping like speaking to them more, because I don't want it to ever appear to like a employer or somebody that I'm working with that like I'm not motivated to do the best job I can for them. I am absolutely. I do not take for granted getting a paycheck from somebody. I don't care what my title is. If you're paying me, I'm going to invest everything I have to doing what I can to do right by you. Plain and simple. But that doesn't mean that I can't dream. It doesn't mean that I can't try to do what I can to chase this better version of myself. I can try to do that. So that goes well beyond what I just said of like how I see myself now, but that is really that's what I'm trying to do. I would also actually say too, this isn't as much of a dream, but considering I do love movies and everything like that, I also love performance, and I would like one day to be a little bit more confident in myself and out of my head, and maybe like perform. Now, somebody could tell me easily that like, oh, like there's community theater, you can do that. Like, I don't want to disparage anybody that does that here in the state that I'm in or the market. But most of the community theater opportunities I see is like, musicals or show choir type of things. Like they're not. I don't really see a lot of opportunities for like, hey, like you could like try your hand at drama or like try yourself like in like a short film or something like that. I know some folks that do this sort of thing actually legitimately. Maybe they just never thought of me to do that sort of thing. And I also have not actively been beaten down their doors to try to get in their stuff, but I suppose there's avenues there. But yeah, that's something I'd be open to as well. In a perfect world where my headspace is just great and I just have I have all the chops to be able to pull this off, but we'll see. The plan ahead is to just try to kind of do everything I just said, which is just, chase my dreams, chase my goals, be the best that I can be on those different buckets that I said of like family, wife, husband, not wife. I'm not a wife. Husband, brother, son, friend, all these things. Like that matters to me infinitely more than title ever will. I think there's an expression out there. I'm gonna butcher it or say it wrong of like, people remember how you made them feel versus like what you actually produce for them. And I do believe that, like in the long run, like no one's going to give a shit that I made some really nice report or something like that. Like, I mean, sure they will to like close a business deal or a case. Really in the long run, they'll probably remember me for just how I treated them. At least I think. So yeah, that's the plan ahead. Just try to do all this stuff and also just get ready to be a dad. Like I haven't even talked about that at all and out in the open, but that's been taking my time, is just getting ready for fatherhood. I mean, that's a whole subject. I mean, look, I got a stroller and a bassinet. Is that what this is? I think so. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in the other room that I don't know what it is, but my wife has been handling a lot of that. So I'm going to end this video on I don't know if that's a high note. I've probably inadvertently given advice throughout the course of this video, but I would like to formally end this by leaving you with an advice chunk. If you don't want to hear advice from a person that you don't know on the internet, then shut this shit off right now and don't listen. That's fine. Like I said, I provided timestamps. You can jump around on this as much as you want to. A few pieces of advice that I do have, fairly general, but I will give it. The first one is accept the suck. Unemployment is not fun. It is not meant to be fun. It's uncomfortable. It can be humiliating. It can be a lot of different not so great words, okay? It really can be. But you have to embrace it. I mean, I think if you're going to make sense of it and get through it, I don't like it when people try to like over sugarcoat or be like, well, like, on the bright side, like, no, like some of it just fucking sucks. Like, it is. It's bad. It's fucking sucks. It's hard. So you have to accept that. I think you also have to be real and vulnerable with yourself for accepting some of that stuff and especially the feelings that come with it. I mean, you feel uncomfortable. You feel a loss of identity. There's lots of self-shame for my case and loathing and all kinds of stuff. Sometimes these feelings are good. I mean, you learn a hell of a lot about yourself by experiencing stuff like this. And I know there's going to be people that'll be like, well, like if like you feel too bad, like, go take a walk or go do something to like get your mind off of it. And I say there's absolute truth and healthy habits to form with that for sure. But I also think there's a lot of wisdom to sitting with those negative feelings and really immersing yourself in why you feel the way you feel. I'm not saying you have to go to a therapist to do that or a psychiatrist or whatever. You can. Nothing wrong with that. But you learn so much about yourself when you get close to these dark places in you. At least I have. And I think that would be advice. Is like, don't run from it, but try to, like, literally, like, my body gets like physically uncomfortable thinking about it, but just like sit with some of the stuff and see what comes out of it. If that means you need the journal to reflect on it, or you need to do what I'm doing, make a video to address this, but like, it's important that you understand and recognize what these feelings are. And, really the last general piece of advice, and And then I'll give like one more specific piece and then wrap this shit up so that you can get on with your life. General piece of advice, go easy on yourself. Give yourself some grace. You're going to have days where you're not as productive as you think you're going to be. Your motivation's in the tubes. Like, take a long nap, sleep in one day, wear sweatpants, do something stupid. Still have fun, actually. That would be one. Like, just, you can still have fun. You're still you. You're not you when you don't have a job. So you still need to find a way to have fun. But you probably obviously don't want to break the bank and like spend a bunch of money night after night to do that. Now for some actual practical, actionable advice that's like really specific and tangible. I'm very big on that if I ever give advice. Because nothing's worse when someone's just like, oh, just like rise above it. Like, okay, well, thank you. Like, that does nothing for me right now. Here's some things that you can actually do. Well, one, you can apply for jobs. There's plenty of job boards and resources. I use, in my circumstance, I use LinkedIn, Indeed, Corridor Careers. That's something that's here in my Cedar Rapids, Iowa area. Individually look up companies and look up employment listings on them. That's actually something I feel like people don't always do, because certain jobs, you think they're always going to be listed on Indeed, and that's not true. They're not always there. So you got to go directly to the employer. Sometimes even if a place doesn't have postings, you can still reach out and ask them if they had stuff. Again, I'm not saying I got the job I have now by doing that, but I did have some people tell me that there were opportunities that were available, and that was only because I asked and was just straightforward about it. I don't know if I necessarily believe in like mock interviewing. That works for some people. I don't think it's for me. I certainly think, though, don't over prepare for an interview. So like, the night before, maybe do some research, but you should still go into interviews relatively open and ready for a discussion, as opposed to like, I'm going to just, present the perfect version of myself and give them these canned answers. That's not really good. If you are finding that you just keep hitting rejection after rejection after rejection, do what you got to do to, help your self-esteem out with that. So I don't care if that means like eat a whole box of Cheez-Its to feel better. It might take some life off your health, or health might take some life from you. You do what you have to do. And, as long as you're not hurting other people in the process, not hurting yourself too much, I think that's what it is. It is what it is. There is so much more I could touch on with this subject, but I really truly hope that some of the stuff that I've shared in here was useful and or just honest. I was really hesitant to make this video, to be honest, because I'm aware that like my current employer could see this, past employers could see it, just people that could affect my future could see it. But I also think that being honest with myself and in this form of expression without in the open, I mean, this is kind of at the core of what this channel is supposed to be about, is being able to make content like this. Doesn't mean I'm always going to be self-serious, but this is a subject I don't really joke about too much because it just sucked. But I believe in context and framing and how you structure things, and I think anybody that actually paid attention to this would know that while I am going off the cuff and I'm going off of stuff that's in my mind, I'm certainly doing it in a way that is, hopefully ethical and professional and does not burn bridges, but also does not sugarcoat things either, because I just really think this is a subject that does not get enough attention. This is a subject that maybe if people are interested and they want to hear more about it, maybe I'll come back and talk about other things I forgot to mention in this, or maybe have a conversation with somebody about it. That would probably be the best way to glean more information on the subject, is just by talking to more people about it. That is a goal that I have for Out in the Open, is to eventually have kind of the podcast format kind of be integrated into it, where I have more long form videos and conversations on it, because so far it's just been me. We'll see what happens for that. I thank everybody for taking the time to watch this. If you watch this in its entirety, bless you very much for doing that. I seriously appreciate it. If you want to leave your thoughts, comments, opinions, anything and everything on here, you can do it in the description for the video. You can also send me an email. That's also, I think, in the description of this video. If it's not, I'll be sure to put it in there. Lastly, and I'm trying to end most of my videos on this, of just be out in the open more. Express, experience, engage. This is not just a reminder for you, it's a reminder for myself because I do not do this enough. I appreciate everybody very much. I hope this helped, and yeah, come back for the next video that I got when I got it. All right, take care everybody. Bye-bye.